Welcome back, Beans Army, to another episode of the Less is More Sports Podcast, the college offseason podcast where you could say we're less of the regular season, but more of the offseason. Between last Sunday and now, so much has happened from all the coaching hires and fires and everything else in between. Sunday, I may or may not have set a Less is More Sports record for content posted across the channels. But through it
hmm
all, Matt, you know what the biggest story was?
Dear God, please don't let it be Cam Boozer's mock draft stock.
No.
Good.
Tusi committing to play football
Right.
at Syracuse.
You'll
Yes,
guess the rapper who hasn't played in like 7 years. Yes.
yes, the rapper best known for his hit song Favorite Song at 25 has committed to play for the Orange. He hasn't played football since high school, but he has been training since he announced his music hiatus back in August. So, hey, best of luck. But I do got to say though, if he doesn't score when scores his first touchdown, if he doesn't do some kind of celebration that's like I'm in the end zone now, singing your favorite song, I'm going to be hella disappointed. I don't know about you, Matt. Matt doesn't strike me as a big Tusi fan.
I just thought it was funny that a rapper who hadn't played football in 7 years at age 25 was signing up to play football. So I
The
just think this whole story is bizarre in general. So I've got that going for me. So nothing can really shock me.
I'm here for it. You know, in the age of the NIL and the transfer portal, anything is possible. Cue
Dwayne
if we
Johnson.
had any nice sound effects, I'd be like cue the Kevin Garnett sound effects. Anything is possible.
I can't do that. If you keep referencing stuff I don't get, I'm going to need the Paul Pierce wheelchair, though.
I know you got the Kevin Garnett reference at least.
I know, but I didn't get anything else. So I'm gonna need that Paul Pierce wheelchair towel over my head, and then I'm gonna hit you with a big shot by going 6'7", right in the middle of
No,
the
we are
throat.
not doing that. We
All
are too
right,
old. We are too old to be hitting the 6'7".
gotta do the hands. Gotta do the hand. You can't see the hands, but I'm doing
Okay,
it.
first of all, as if our actual age wasn't too old to do the 6'7", Matt's Spotify Wrapped age is definitely too old to be doing the 6'7".
It wasn't that bad. It was pretty bad. Okay,
It said you were 73.
which is actually understated considering I hadn't used it since June because I switched to another platform, and I was actually listening to songs from the 40s. This Bing Crosby song was stuck in my head like through most of like early February. So I'm probably lucky it's not 93, but
I,
sometimes life be like that.
I don't know how to feel about this. Mine was 23. Mind you,
Well,
I'm 30. I'm 32, so mind you, I don't know if that's
you're
good, bad,
child's play.
indifferent, if I'm with the times or if I'm just way too immature for my age. I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, I haven't seen you with a Labubu yet, so you've at least got that going for
That's true. I haven't. You will not see me with a little boo boo. But
you.
anyways,
Labubu.
what you will see, is that we are going to talk about all the crazy coaching fires that have been going on the past week in college football, and there will probably be more as we continue, as we move on forward towards the calendar and into the new year. And so this will probably be a multiple part series. But as we talk about some of the coaching moves that have happened within the last week, of course, we have the big one. We have Lane Kiffin going to LSU. We have John Summerall to Florida. We have Mark Stoops getting fired from Kentucky. We have Oregon offensive coordinator Will Stein taking over. So before we dive into some of the other moves, if you had to say, Matt, right now, of the coaching moves that has happened so far this week, which one is either the best or to word it a little differently, because maybe there isn't a best or worst, the one that intrigues you the most?
I'm sticking with something we talked about on an earlier show, and it's none of the guys you mentioned. I'm actually still really intrigued by Bob Chesney going to UCLA. We talked about him in conjunction with the Penn State job. That obviously didn't happen, and we'll cross that bridge in a bit. But this dude goes from James Madison to UCLA. UCLA trying to, I think, raise their profile in the college football world, moving to SoFi Stadium, leaving the Rose Bowl, which is an iconic venue, don't get me wrong, but it's not suited to the modern audience. You want to talk about Spotify listening age, that's something that probably should have been retired 73 years ago. But they're trying to move up in the world with their profile. This Bob Chesney is probably the best guy you could get to do it. I was a little surprised that he was willing to go from the lovely East Coast, old Virginia, Tidewater area heading toward UCLA, which is glitz, glam, and superstars. But sometimes the move is just right, and the move is there. And when you opportunity knocks once, you got to take it. And I think that's going to be the most intriguing move to me because I think it's actually going to work out really well. I mean, dude just builds programs. That's his thing. Doesn't matter when he's where he's been or how he's done it, but it's just a new area and a new conference that and UCLA, now the questions move on to who do you retain? I know they weren't great last year, to say the least, but do you keep Neuheisel on staff? You've already lost the interim coach to Cal Poly. He's gone to Cal Poly now. Do you keep Nico at quarterback or do you explore your options? And of course, now this dude, Chesney, is going to be dealing with all of the comparisons to the last guy from James Madison who ended up coaching at a Big Ten school and we all need to Google who that is, of course. But he's going to be dealing with some expectation and comparison. He's going to a different area of the country entirely. But I still think it's a good move. It's probably my favorite move of the cycle because I'm going to be honest, outside of Lane Kiffin, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, how I feel about that. I think he may be the most consistent guy out there in terms of like a move that I would make if I was in that position. And so I'm going to go with Bob Chesney going to UCLA as my favorite, maybe underrated, maybe not, move of the cycle so far as we've seen.
Well, we're about 4 minutes into the podcast, and Matt and I have our first agreement of the show. And I also went with Bob Chesney because I'm holding on to the narrative that JMU is a AAA coaching developmental school. Now we're going to get the real test of because now Billy Napier is becoming the new head coach. We all know how that ended in Florida. I know he's got a reputation. A lot of people feel a certain way about how he is as a coach. But if he can go to JMU and revive his image at all, I think the JMU AAA coaching development narrative holds true. But also the fact that he was able to follow and act like Kurtz and Yeti, still have a ton of success. Those were big shoes to fill. I think that speaks a ton, speaks volumes to what kind of coach UCLA is getting. So I also agree Bob Chesney is a very intriguing hire to open this crazy coaching carousel. But of course, that was the icebreaker question, Matt. Now we got to address the elephant in the room. Lane
Well,
Kiffin to LSU. And while we dive into that, Matthew, remind me, what is the definition of insanity?
doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
This feels like Brian Kelly getting hired all over again. It always felt like Brian Kelly's biggest downfall at LSU was not buying into the program or buying into the state of Louisiana. He was a very me first coach. But honestly, do we expect anything different from Lane Kiffin? He dipped out at Ole Miss during a potential college football playoff run. He's ghosting his players as they reach out. This looks like the old Lane Kiffin that he's been trying to repair his reputation from. Yet, he's a good coach. So is Brian Kelly. Honestly, Matt, I feel like Summerall would have been the better hire here, in my opinion. A good
Mm-hmm.
coach, and we know he can buy into Louisiana. But it's moves like this that bring me back to our original point to at ad nauseum. Why do we expect players to be loyal when coaches aren't?
Exactly.
Or
Now,
more realistically, let's be honest here. Loyalty does not exist. It's Fugazi. It's Fugazi. I just got done watching Wolf of Wall Street too, so I got that Matthew McConaughey scene stuck in my head right now.
oh God, no, it doesn't exist. It didn't really exist before. The only difference is now it's a little bit out in the open. And the thing is here, man, in addition to why this Lane Kiffin situation perfectly encapsulates to me why we needed to change the rules of the transfer portal, especially because, there was a time when these kids at Ole Miss would just be like, no option. Your coach just left you high and dry. People are actively talking about leaving you out of the college football playoff because your coach left. And that's just not fair to make those kids who signed up to be with Lane Kiffin be like, oh no, you're trapped at Ole Miss forever. It doesn't matter who we hire. This is a great example of why we needed to update that a little bit better. But the thing is too for me, Les, is when I think of Lane Kiffin, I do think of success, But I also think about getting left on the tarmac at USC. I also think about the overhead projector incident with the Raiders. There's a lot that I think about that ends very poorly in the career of Lane Kiffin, and it's usually the fault of Lane Kiffin. And I'm not going to act like he's as bad as Brian Kelly. I don't know that. I don't know either one of those guys. I know the stories around them, but I don't know much about I don't know them personally. I don't know how they matured. I don't know what their character arcs are, et cetera, et cetera. But what I do know is that there is a lot of drama that follows Lane Kiffin wherever he goes. And especially after what happened a week ago in the Egg Bowl with the fight that happened in the middle of the second quarter, and he's talking about Mississippi State's AD like trying to get him to fight and being like all riled up for combat and battle and how much he loves the ship and all that jazz, and then nah, he's gone. The dog's not even his. Juice Kiffin is a lie. We're finding all this out. People are following him to the airport. Marty Smith is imprisoned in Oxford forever. It's just another example of drama just following this guy wherever he goes. And the thing is, in addition to the drama, there's not been a lot of winning either. There have been wins, but it's not been at the level we all think he can get, which is why I'm going to make a bold prediction right now. This is going to be interesting, and because it's contingent on something else, and that would be if Blake Baker takes the Tulane job, Lane Kiffin will probably be gone in 3 years. If Blake Baker stays at LSU, I think something will happen. I think Lane Kiffin may put it together here. I think his success at LSU is more contingent on Blake Baker than anyone is actually thinking.
I'm not one to argue that. I think that's a very good point. But I think you know what the bigger, or I guess not bigger necessarily, but I think what this whole tangent comes down to, Matt, you really can't turn a hoe into a housewife. And I want to address that too because as an independent podcast host can say that on my podcast. But as a former reporter, I will be the first to say that that is not language you use during to a head coach. That is not good practice. Don't do that. For all you young reporters listening to the show, don't do that. If you want to use that kind of language, get your own independent podcast channel like I have, and then you can say that.
I'm
But when
just imagining.
you are in
I'm
a
just.
professional setting. Yes, it's cool. Like if you want to be like use more hip terminology, kind of be looser and have, be more as a way to be more comfortable talking to coaches. Yes, absolutely do that. But do not call them a hoe. Do not say you can't turn a hoe into a housewife. Don't do that in a professional setting. Get your own YouTube channel, get your own Spotify channel, and do it that way.
I'm just imagining what would have happened if you called Coach Brown a hoe or a hoe. You would have been thrown through the brick wall of the gym. I guarantee it. If you called Coach Wiley Brown a hoe.
Oh, that'd
Not
have
that
been
we would ever
wild.
do that, and we do not condone it, and we love IUS. But my God, I'm just imagining that would have been like the last day of your life. I think
And
if
it
he didn't
definitely
do it, the team would have done it.
and it definitely would have happened. It definitely would have been the end if it was after a loss because Coach Wiley Brown did not take losses well. He's
Yeah,
a very competitive guy.
I bet. Yeah, to say that he never meant any harm with man. Well, you could tell we were having a bad game because when I brought him the stats, the yank of the stats out of my hand, I could just tell like I got to get out of here, man.
No, I mean, he's
He's
a
a good
very
guy.
animated guy after a loss, man. We love Coach Wiley Brown, Coach. If you're listening, we got love for you. But he's also the kind of coach who gets so fired up after a loss, he'll start pointing fingers at everybody and be like, "You didn't," and blah blah blah. You didn't box out. It's like, Coach, I'm the reporter. I didn't even play. What are you talking
Oh,
about?
yes, you should have gotten in there and shot a three if you weren't so fatigued.
I might as well. What are you doing holding the camera? Get in there. We need a spot up shooter in the corner.
I do it. If Wiley Brown told me to go in and get a rebound, I'd be like, "Yes, sir."
Sir, yes, sir. We on it. But
Roll,
anyways,
roll.
do we have anything left to say about Lane Kiffin? Or are we ready to move on?
No, I'm done with Lane Kiffin. I mean, yeah, I'm just worried about the drama, man. It's like you said, it's not as bad. It's almost worse than Brian Kelly because it's the worst kind. He's not going to put on a fake accent. He's not going to be like, "This is my family," or whatever the heck Brian Kelly.
Yo, that was spot on too. That was
It's my
hilarious.
family. He's not going to do that at the press conference. He's going to be Lane Kiffin. But even Lane Kiffin has some pretty big dirty laundry. So I'm going to be interested to see what happens. Like I said, I think it's totally it. I hate to be that guy, but it's totally about Baker to me. I think that Lane Kiffin knows how to coach an offense, but we saw what Mississippi State's defenses were like. You know, we had the Land Sharks, I know, but past few years especially, it's not been super great. But if they keep a guy like Baker, they're going to be just fine. I don't know how long it takes to get going, but they're going to be just fine.
As we transition to the more coaching moves that have happened this week, is you talked about Bob Chesney being a very underrated move, but is there another move that maybe isn't being talked about a lot that maybe you feel is going kind of flying under the radar?
It's not really flying under the radar, but the fan base's reaction to it kind of caught me off guard. And like I said, this is not under the radar at all. But the way Florida fans reacted to John Sumrall's hiring really surprised me. I mean, I know it's not like the guy you think you're going to get, but that's the bad thing about the modern era of message boards and anonymous sources and troll accounts. Urban Meyer wasn't coming back, people. I don't know how to tell you this. Urban Meyer wasn't walking through that door. I mean, you're not getting Lou Holtz to come back. I mean, I don't know who you wanted.
You sure
You're
as hell
Florida.
getting Steve Spurrier to come back.
No, you're not getting Nick Saban. You're not getting. I mean, I'm trying to think of other former coaches. I mean, Pete Carroll's not coming to you. I don't know who exactly you think you're getting. I mean, you got to get the best guy available to you, and that's arguably Summerall. I mean, the dude turned Tulane and Troy into powerhouses out of nowhere. You got to give the guy a chance, and I think he did eventually win people over with his press conference at the introduction. But the initial reaction kind of surprised me because I thought Summerall would be really good at LSU because he knew the Louisiana area. And then I'm like, well, Troy's in Alabama, so he's going a little bit further east, but the dude wins. I mean, that's all you can say about it. And I mean, I don't exactly know who you thought you were getting. I mean, Emmett Smith wasn't going to coach. Jack Youngblood's not walking through that door, and you don't want Tim Tebow, I don't guess. But
Oh, you definitely do not. He
it's
doesn't
just
he doesn't even believe in NIL.
no, no. That's not. He's like the Dabo Sweeney of former quarterbacks.
He might even be
But
worse than Dabo Swinney.
that's true.
He lives in this fairy tale namby-pamby world where you commit to schools because that's where your father went and that's where your grandfather went and it's all about legacies and that's the reason that the stadiums and all that is bigger, blah blah blah. It's like, dog, how are you so out of touch with reality? You really think that if you really expect us to believe that when your jersey was the third highest selling jersey behind LeBron and Kobe's and you didn't get a dime of that and you didn't care, something's wrong with you in the head. I'm sorry.
Man thought Andy Griffith Show was a documentary.
No, exactly. Listen, I love Andy Griffith, but is
Mayberry is an idealized place that does not exist.
yeah, Mayberry is not real. I'm sorry to break it to you.
Well, the place they filmed it is, but that's a story for another time. But yeah,
Yes.
I don't understand exactly what Florida was thinking they were going to get. I mean, Summerall is like the best option available to me if you're going through the mid majors. Maybe I. So that was kind of one of those examples to me of like where I think we've all been tainted a little bit by the way we consume media about our teams now, where it's like everybody's on the message board posting about like some pipe dream or there's some troll account that gets you or some insider that's got about as much insider knowledge as I do making a prediction. But that was the one that surprised me was not necessarily the hire, but the reaction to the hire.
Right.
Now we'll talk about a couple other things later. We'll get to another couple too that I have thoughts on, but that was really what surprised me. There was the reaction to the hire.
Right. An underrated move I thought was Pat Fitzgerald going to Michigan State. Pat Fitzgerald is the winningest coach at Northwestern. Kind of surprised that he left after 17 years, but he knows the Big Ten really well and knows how to get the most out of his players. And now that he's at Michigan State, he has a significantly higher NIL budget and maybe even more importantly, from a football standpoint, I don't know about a life standpoint, but a football standpoint, significantly lower academic standards. Recruiting just got a whole lot easier.
I think we also forget about how the Pat Fitzgerald era kind of ended at Northwestern too. They probably weren't on
Yeah,
as bad of they weren't as bad of a downward trajectory as we think they were, but that scandal really kind of just buried him.
yeah,
He had nothing to do with it. He just kind of got buried.
yeah. He was kind of, he was kind of guilty by association in that regard.
Sometimes it just happens that way, unfortunately.
Sometimes it does. But you know what else is happening right now? I don't know how I feel about this, Matt.
Uh oh.
The Battle of the Bluegrass officially runs through Louisville, and that's going to make the Louisville fans happy. But that's not the part that really I don't know how I feel about. The part that has me feeling some type of way is now the Battle of the Bluegrass officially runs, and this is going to kill me as a St. X grad. It officially
We
runs through the Trinity Shamrocks, who will be playing for the state championship this week. Yeah, Will Stein is the new head coach of Kentucky, former Oregon offensive coordinator. Like Jeff Brom, is a former Louisville quarterback and a former Trinity Shamrock quarterback. So just think of the PR and the publicity that's going to be getting, and just I guess what's the word I'm looking for, where it's really got the hometown buying in because it's one of their own, supposedly something like that. I can't think of the words, but anyways, yeah, the Battle of the Bluegrass now officially runs through the Trinity Shamrocks, and that upsets me as a Saint X grad.
I'm sorry, Les, but the weeds have taken over.
They have
It's
they knocked
it's
my
not the bluegrass
Tiger
anymore. It's the weed grass.
they knocked my Tigers out of the state playoffs last year by beating them 50-7, and
Yeah,
it
they've
just
had
went downhill from there.
Trinity's had a good run. I can't lie about it, but the thing about coordinator moves for me, I am not the obsessed. I'm not the college football obsessive. I don't know exactly what I am. Coordinator hires are hard for me to judge because it's like depending on where you're at, especially at Oregon, where it's like you've got Sadiq, you've got Moore, you've got every freakish athlete on the planet playing for you. And all you have to do is like drop a play for that. You have to be innovative. I get that to get the best out of them. But at the same time, it's hard to judge like what kind of like overall leader you're going to be. And in addition to that, I did see where Kentucky today just stole Louisville's like one of Louisville's player personnel directors to be like their new GM. And ironically enough, they hired LSU's former offensive coordinator to be their offensive coordinator in Joe Sloan, which was a bit of a surprise to me because, this
That
is another
might
one
be
of
the
those.
most underrated move there.
That's one of those moves that's tough to judge because, like, let's be honest, the LSU offense has not been inspiring the last couple years. But this dude has coached a Heisman Trophy winner. Let's not delude ourselves about how bad he could be. And I mean, you will attest to this too as well. That like under Brian Kelly, where you're getting the bus thrown at you every time a play goes the wrong direction. It's hard to thrive. It's hard to thrive. And now you're going to Kentucky where there's a little less pressure. I don't think Will Stein is going to yell at Joe Sloan every time like a pass goes over someone's head the way Brian Kelly did. And in a press conference, he's not going to be like, "Well, if our offensive coordinator did his freaking job, you know."
Yeah.
So I think maybe it's just good change situation. Like I said, it's hard to be inspired when you're getting crushed every play and in the press conference you're getting thrown under the bus. And like I said, you've coached a Heisman Trophy winner. You're with another offensive mind. You're in good shape. You're in good shape. But I know it's painful to talk about this less, so we'll move on to another topic if you're ready.
You know, it's funny though, we are moving on to another topic, and for majority of the week, Matt and I were both in agreement that Penn State might have missed the bag. They had all this opportunity to sign all these big name coaches left and right. And we thought that the meme that came out about midweek, where Penn State's best coaching option were fictional coaches from football movies like Marty Daniels or like Coach Klein from The Waterboy. But maybe it all worked out the way it was supposed to, because now there talks about closing
It's
in on a
official,
deal on former Iowa State head coach Matt Campbell. So
and it is
Matt, how do you
official.
feel about that?
It's funny. You give yourself 6 months in advance or 6 weeks to go ahead and figure out who your next massive head coach is. and you still kind of end up winning in the end. I mean, for God's sake, this was like one of the greatest like coaching struggles I've ever seen. We've got crumble cookies, we've got Mormonism, we've got like everything you could envision coming at you from like every angle with this story. They're about to sign this guy. They're about to sign this guy. No, BYU signing him back. This is the greatest win for Mormons since negotiating with James Buchanan's government in 1857. It's incredible stuff going on here. And James Franklin steals all their recruits. Their recruiting class is ranked below Kennesaw State. Everything's falling apart. You're signing Brian Dable this morning, but you still end up with Matt Campbell, and you're retaining Terry Smith as your defensive coordinator. To which I say, congratulations on being the same team you were 6 weeks ago. I love Matt Campbell. I picked him as one of my coaches for the coach of the fantasy teams because he hadn't won a national championship. But that's the key thing. James Franklin didn't have a national championship either. He's a consistent program builder, as Matt Campbell. James Franklin, consistent program builder. Winning the big game. Still a big question for Matt Campbell. We talked about this for years. Matt Campbell is just one of those guys who also seemingly can't get over the hump. So although it's a pretty much like a win for Penn State, given how this thing went, you've kind of just Groundhog Day yourself. You just have like a different coach now. You kept everybody else. You've retained Terry Smith, and now you've kind of Groundhog Day yourself, and you're a little bit behind the eight ball. I don't know how many guys are going to transfer in from the Cyclones to Happy Valley. I don't know how many transfer portal guys are going to be like mega excited about Matt Campbell. It's just very strange. I mean, it seems like you've just done a cycle again. Like you've just kind of ended up back where you were with a slight reinvention. It's like when I want a new haircut, but I'm still me. New do, not new attitude. It's still better than the alternatives I was seeing. I'm not going to lie. I mean, if it was hiring Matt Campbell or Willie Fritz, I'm taking Matt Campbell 10 times out of 10. But it's still just a weird move to me that seems like you just did a 360, involved a bunch of unnecessary drama with crumble cookies and AJ Dibansa and the people who own Marriott hotels, and you got a bunch of other coaches paid. I mean, you paid that's it. You just got a bunch of other coaches paid, and you kind of just went in and like, hey, look, I got a new earring or I got a new hat, and you're just kind of where you were before. And I want to be wrong. I really like Matt Campbell. I want him to experience more levels of success. But the words I'm seeing used to describe Matt Campbell are the same way they describe James Franklin. And I don't exactly know who you think you're going to get in this scenario either. But when you give yourself that much of an advantage and basically like, well, they didn't really give up on the season, but don't kind of, throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's just weird that you just did a 360 to me. You kind of ended up in the same place.
To be completely fair, I am going to go down the numbers of Matt Campbell's time at Iowa State. Prior to Matt Campbell arriving to Iowa State, so from 1895 to 2015.
1895.
Yes, that is when the program first started playing football. They have a 43% winning percentage. They had zero top 10, tier 0 10 win seasons. They had two AP top 25 finishes, 10 seasons in the AP top 25, three bowl wins, and that's in 119 seasons. Now, during Matt Campbell, from 2016 to 2025, they have a 57% win percentage. They have a 10 win season. They have three top 25 finishes, seven seasons in the AP top 25 to begin the year, three bowl wins, and that's in 10 seasons. So, regardless of how good we think Matt Campbell may or may not be at Penn State, it is worth noting that he did kind of bring Iowa State from being one of the worst Power Five teams to some kind of relevance.
But here's what scares me about that. He's 4-7 against top 10 teams and 16-29 overall against ranked teams. which not great. He's 4-6 at Iowa State and 14-25 at Iowa State and 3-4 in bowl games. Like I said, Iowa State does not have the resources of Penn State. Even though I did find out today that the CEO of Purdue, like chicken, went to Iowa State because they thought now there's going to be a war between. They went from fighting crumble cookies to chicken, of all things. So go figure with that. But like I said, it's just seemingly like they did a 360. You get a guy who's 4-6 against top 10 teams. The big knock against James Franklin was he couldn't win the big one. It's just weird. It just feels like a total 360, but it also feels like a win, given how bleak it was after Sataki said no.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you got to take your wins where you get them at this point because I mean, we a couple days ago were literally just posting memes about the next coach being a fictional coach. Now they actually got a legitimate coach. So I mean, you got to take your wins where you could get them. But I guess that's going to be a question we ask the fans. Let us know in the comments. How do you think Matt Campbell is going to do as the Penn State head football coach? But we got about 6 minutes before we got to get off here. There's probably a couple more coaches that we want to talk about. But I do want to say one that made me feel really old is Colin Klein now coaching
Yeah,
his alma mater again.
God bless.
Yes, he's one of the best offensive coaches in the game, but where this makes me and Matt feel old is that we remember when Colin Klein was a Heisman candidate as the quarterback for Kansas State. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can't even with this. When they were like he's the new head coach, it's like, all right, well, I guess it's time to apply for ARP. My
That's
listening
tough.
age was correct. My listening age was correct. You nailed me, Spotify. But yeah, I think he's going to do really well at Kansas State. The move that kind of surprised me, and then I found out more about it, was Brian Hartline going to South Florida.
Hmm.
But then the more I read into it, South Florida is one of those teams that's just on the cusp, I think, of moving to the ACC, doing something like that. And I was surprised to learn that South Florida has the biggest NIL collective for football of any AAC squad. And I mean, fruitful, blah, 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 blah. Florida is a fertile recruiting ground, obviously. Brian Hartline is like one of the great hype dudes, excuse me, on the sideline that I've seen. I think it's a good combination. I know a lot of people were flummoxed by that because they thought he could get a better gig. I think this is a great 3-year stepping stone prove it gig because you'll have access to funds. You're in a recruiting rich area. And I think you're going to be just fine if you're Brian Hartline. I mean, like I said, it's hard for me to judge coordinator hirings, especially in college, because half of college is just recruiting the best athletes you can and then shaping them to your system.
Well,
And
as you say that, Brian Hartline made a name for himself coaching receivers, and also he was a former receiver when he played, and now he's in an area where is like a hotbed for producing receivers, like
yeah,
kind of like you alluded to. So I think it's actually a pretty good fit.
it's a good fit. Yeah. I was surprised people were so down on it. And then the more I read about like South Florida's NIL, the more I read about how that's a big reason why people weren't too concerned when Golesh left is because he hadn't done much with that great NIL fund. I think Brian Hartline's going to be just fine in the AAC, and you want to give it time, obviously, but I think they'll be definitely contending for that group of five playoff spot coming up real soon.
We got about 4 minutes before we got to get off here, so I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way so we can spend the rest of our remaining time talking about any coaching moves that we do want to talk about. As always, like and subscribe to the Less is More Sports YouTube and Spotify channel to get the latest updates we have on new content coming out. Be sure to follow the social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, and Threads. That's at Less is More Sports. Be sure to follow the side quest on TikTok. That is at BeansDad018. And what other moves do you want to end the podcast with today, sir?
Well, there are so many. The one that really that surprised me the most, I'm going to say, I keep calling him Silverfish, but that's not his name. Was the silver guy going to Arkansas. It
That was
was
a weird thing because we thought Golish was going to be the coach and now he's
yeah, and then
not.
he's not the coach, and it's like okay. I mean, Memphis has been good. I mean, don't get me wrong, Memphis has been good. They beat Arkansas this year, but I was surprised to see how like it was kind of out of a left field move. Don't get me wrong, this is definitely like a B hire to me. This is a B plus hire. I think he's going to be a lot better than people think he's going to be, and that's with a loaded ACC, SCC. I'm sorry. And I mean Silverfield, he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be able to bring enough energy and enough talent with him that roster is going to be just fine. I mean, they're definitely going to be. It was a B hire to me. That was another one where I was surprised at the vitriol I see. But I think actually, the best hire that I really liked the most was Eric Morris, of course, going to Oklahoma State. I think that is going to be a. They had a bad year this year. I don't think they're going to have a bad year for a while with Eric Morris at the helm. He's just a really,
Especially if they bring their quarterback along with them.
and I think they will. And he's just what they need. He's consistent. I mean, Morris knows how to coach up a good defense. He's a quarterback whisperer. I think, and especially with the way the Big 12 is trending, I think that that's probably going to be the hire that has the most immediate impact will be Eric Morris at Oklahoma State. Because I think they can, if they get the right guy and bring their quarterback, they can contend, maybe not win the conference, but they can contend in that conference right away with him because he knows how to coach quarterbacks, he knows his offense, and if he comes preloaded with a quarterback and a system, I think they're going to be ready to go. So I really like Eric Morris at Oklahoma State.
And that's the number one question. If they do get that quarterback to transfer, um, when was the last time Oklahoma State had a really good quarterback? Are we gonna,
Well,
or will we go? Will we go as far as to say Brandon Wheaton?
I would go as far as to say Brandon Wheat.
There was Zach Robinson as well.
No, Zach Robinson wasn't bad. I think I'm just blinded by Brandon Whedon because that was like he was one of the quarterbacks of like my youth, kind of like
Oh, here's a name we forgot about. Mason
Ollie
Rudolph.
Gordon.
No,
Oh, Mason Rudolph.
bruh,
That's
bruh.
you walked into that one. You walk right into the Ollie Gordon the third trap, and you are making a residence in it,
But yeah, we
sir.
almost forgot about Mason Rudolph.
Who can forget about Mason Rudolph? And in December of all months,
I know. Someone get Miles Garrett.
oh hey now, hey, we're not hitting Rudolph. He's got to guide Santa sleigh tonight. Come on.
Hey,
Not tonight. He's not tonight, but yeah, Eric Morris. I think that's going to be a move that ends up paying off real well. So
I actually agree.
immediately, now we're trying to see who can get the last word off before the timer runs.
Cam Boozer.
Oh, God bless it. I'm gonna do that thing on my face now, like that kid.
Do the Isaiah Evans.
Look at me, I'm Isaiah Evans.